Okay, you see us? Okay. Slating, Channel to the People, episode number 10-82, VTR, May 15th, 1982. Beeps in and out, confirm.
I was never against gay rights or anything like that, even in school. When we debated these things, I debated for gay rights. But when she told me, it was like a real shock. It's like a liberal finding out that his adopted son is black or something like that.
Dennis Palmerico is talking about his mother. He was 15 when he found out she is a lesbian.
You know, if your mother's gay, you know, and she's enjoying herself, it's positive. And she's happy, it's always positive.
Hello, I'm Fred Noriega. Being a parent is hard enough, but for lesbian mothers, it is especially difficult. They have to cope with being viewed as renegades, aberrations, and if these stereotypes don't present enough of a burden, they may also be involved in custody battles. That experience can be traumatic for both the mother and the children.
That was the case for Rosemary Dempsey.
The kids are immediately told, you know, you're in a terrible situation. You know, this other situation would be much better for you. You're going to grow up sick. You're going to grow up this. You're going to grow up that. It's very bad for you.
But Dempsey believes just the opposite.
If you feel that what you're doing is right and is positive and you are happy with yourself, you're going to reflect that to your kids.
I'm Marie Torre. The lesbian who chooses to be a mother faces what has been described as a double whammy: the fact of her homosexuality and raising a child in what some regard as an unacceptable lifestyle. Even so, there are more than 1 million lesbian mothers in the United States, and in some cases their lives are laced with problems and controversy. Later in this program, people on both sides of that issue go on the record with some startling views. Fred?
On this edition of Channel to the People, we'll take a look at the problems encountered by lesbian mothers.
The American image of a normal family was a mother, a father, and a couple of children, and everybody smiled a lot. They're still smiling, but these days more and more American families are looking something like this: brothers, sisters, a mother, and a mother. Rosemary Dempsey and Maggie Wales are mothers. They're also lesbians.
If you feel that what you're doing is right and is positive and you are happy with yourself, you're going to reflect that to your kids. A lot of people don't believe this, but we didn't have, or I don't think the children experienced, any terrible kind of problems with their peers or with neighbors, adult neighbors and their children. You know, you hear stories about children not being able to play with other children because of who their parents are. We really didn't have any problems like that.
But the problems they did have began after 4 years of living together as lesbian lovers. That's when both their ex-husbands sued for child custody.
The kids are immediately told, you know, you're in a terrible situation. You know, this other situation would be much better for you. You're going to grow up sick. You're going to grow up this. You're going to grow up that. It's very bad for you.
Dempsey calls it brainwashing and is particularly bitter towards Wales's husband.
He wanted them to say that this was a terrible household, that there were constantly orgies going on, that people had sex in front of them, that they were being, that I sexually abused them, that I beat them up with belts and belt buckles. You know, the whole list of horribles, all the fantasies that anyone has ever connected with lesbians as very bizarre people. They were all out there.
These are the kinds of stereotypes that gays, and particularly lesbian mothers fighting for child custody, must contend with. Like other minorities, gays are known mostly through the most flamboyant members of their community. Civil rights struggles for gays began in the 1970s and culminated in a march on Washington in 1979. If it didn't change the stereotypes, it did at least change many laws. But if these days there's less discrimination in the workplace, the home is still under siege. In a country where motherhood is revered along with the flag, lesbian mothers are called unfit. Dennis Palmerico would disagree. His mother told him she was a lesbian when he was 15 years old.
You know, if your mother's gay, you know, and she's enjoying herself, it's positive. And she's happy, it's always positive.
But he admits it wasn't easy at first.
I was never against gay rights or anything like that, even in school. When we debated these things, I debated for gay rights. But when she told me, it was like a real shock. It's like a liberal finding out that his adopted son is black or something like that. It was really a shock.
There was also the fear of how his friends would react.
Just wondering if this would affect me when I go out and go to school and, you know, see people for the first time, you know, will they act any different to me because my mother's gay? I wondered about that for a while. And after a while, I was at the point where what can I do? Either they like me or not, it doesn't matter anymore. My mother's always going to be there. And she will be there, and they won't always be there.
His brother Michael was only 12 when his mother's lover moved in with them.
I was so scared about not telling any. I didn't want anybody to know about it because I thought they might have a lot of jokes. So I only had a few. I had a lot of friends. But I only had a few real close friends, and the close friends, I felt they could handle it. So when I told them, they felt it was okay.
And Michael also found some benefits.
I feel like I can be closer to her because she told me something that it's very important to her, and I understood. So I feel I understand her now.
But if children can accept not living in a traditional home, often the other people closest to the mother cannot.
Heterosexual parents, okay, who have lesbian children cause tremendous problems. They isolate those children, they deny those children, they throw Bibles at their children.
Georgine Gora is a therapist with a large lesbian clientele, many of them mothers. Several years ago, the American Psychological Association stated that homosexuality is not a mental illness.
Lesbianism is one woman loving another woman. Love never hurt anyone. Love is a very good and positive thing, especially for children. Children need love. Without it, they will not survive. With it, they will flourish.
But misconceptions about lesbianism create problems for those who choose a gay lifestyle and result in custody battles.
Homophobia, if you will, the fear of homosexuality is causing the problem. The husband's fear, the judge's fear, the church's fear of it, society's fear is causing these very innocent children tremendous turmoil.
Heterosexuals fear that children raised by lesbian mothers will also become gay, but no study has shown that to be true.
Everybody I know that's gay came from heterosexual families.
When I was younger, when she told me, I was about 15, I said, am I gay too? You know, I thought about that. But that was like a brief thing, and I didn't worry about it too much.
Dempsey thinks there are even special benefits for the child of a gay parent.
They tend to be more tolerant of people's differences, which you know, is a positive. They don't tend to judge people on the basis of race, religion, accents, sexuality, as much as kids who are brought up in traditional homes might do. And I think it's fairly predictable.
I feel I've started understanding people more, and different people, since my mother, you know, since they're different and they know other different people and they introduce me to it, and I'm starting to understand it more, and just guess I'm getting so wiser and all that kind of stuff.
You find out her friends are gay, and you find out these little things, and you really begin to understand the silliness of all this anti-gay rights or anything like that.
In the past few years, the courts have grown kinder to lesbian mothers. In 1980, Rosemary Dempsey won custody of her 2 children, the first time a New Jersey court awarded child custody to a lesbian mother living with her lover.
The judge put on the record that he didn't believe any of the bizarreness, any of the any of the stories that this was not a good home. He said on the record that he has an 8-year-old girl and that he would have no compunctions about leaving her here in this home while he went on vacation for a week or two.
The court battle was an enormous emotional struggle for their household, but Dempsey believes more good than harm came out of it.
It showed the kids, too, that it gave them a whole lot of strength, and it gave them really positive feedback for believing that, for knowing that if you believe who you are and if you like who you are, and if you're going forward with something that is maybe not very popular, but what you believe is right, then times can be difficult, but the whole world is not going to fall in.
But if the courts are changing their tune, what about the rest of society?
When your mother may be a lesbian, or your uncle is a gay male, or your next-door neighbor who helped you change the tire is gay, or your doctor who saved your life is gay. And they're there, but we don't know it. But as we get to know gay people, we learn that they're just like everyone else, people.
What's most important for children is love, is love of themselves, is security within a family. And that what you're talking about is taking children away because a person is different. It's very dangerous because it's, maybe lesbian mothers today, it could be, it could be ACLU parents tomorrow. I mean, that's, or if we became very leftist in this country, it could be the conservative parents would be losing their kids who are active in the conservative movement. You can't allow that to happen in this kind of a country.
This report will continue with Marie Torre in just a moment.
History lesson. When was condemnation of homosexuality first recorded? Prohibitions against homosexuality go back to the Old Testament. One of the first general condemnations of homosexual relationships appears in Jewish history in the 7th century BC, upon the return from the Babylonian exile. A wave of nationalism and concern for perpetuation of the tribe prompted a break with many of the customs shared with neighbors. Homosexuality was one of the banned customs. Today, many centuries later, there are still segments of the population that would ban homosexuality.
Lesbianism is a chosen lifestyle. It's a perversion of biblical morality.
This is the chairman of New Jersey's Moral Majority, Dr. Harry Vickery, pastor of the Heritage Baptist Temple in Washington County. As for lesbians in the role of mothers and judges who would grant them custody,
I would think that a judge should be much more responsible than to choose a homosexual or lesbian person with this style of life as an acceptable parent.
the acceptability of the lesbian mother is an issue that has drawn enough adversaries to send homosexuals back into the closet. Opposition comes not only from the moral majority, but also from some religious leaders and conservatives in the nation's capital. These last 2 years, they say, has seen a setback in homosexual rights and lesbian motherhood in particular.
In the past 6 months, we have seen 5 major appellate decisions across the country which go against lesbian mothers in custody cases.
Rosalind Richter of Lambda, a legal defense fund for gay rights.
I think Rosemary Dempsey's case is an exception to the decisions as we're seeing them now. Her case was particularly unusual in that Rosemary won custody while she was still living with her lover, and in effect the court awarded custody to the 2 of them. Rosemary's case also is 2 years old and really preceded the moral majority and the changing climate. We haven't seen such positive decisions in the last year or 2.
Particularly distressed by growing hostilities toward lesbians is Virginia Apuzzo, former New York City Commissioner of Health, now Executive Director of the Fund for Human Dignity, affiliated with the National Gay Task Force.
We have, some evidence that tells us there are over 1 million lesbian mothers in this country. And their commitment to their role as mother is as committed as as any woman's role to her children.
More and more lesbians reportedly are asserting their right to motherhood, and some, if they don't already have children, are seeking the artificial insemination route.
That some women are now interested in achieving motherhood through artificial insemination doesn't surprise me, simply because I know that there are lesbians who see their lesbianism and their role as mother as not mutually exclusive, as in fact very much a part of what is significant and important to them.
A book, Rocking the Cradle, deals with self-administered insemination, of special interest to the homosexual community perhaps, since Manhattan's sperm bank, IDANT, will not give artificial insemination to lesbians. Co-director Roxanne Felsha explains.
We feel we're not equipped at the time to deal with this extra dimension in terms of counseling. There are additional pressures we feel that would ensue when a lesbian couple chooses to have a child together, aside from the social stigma that still is attached to lesbianism. We feel that these women have special needs, and as a result we're able to refer them to other physicians who will accept them as patients on an individual basis, and also to several women's health facilities.
And what does the American Civil Liberties Union have to say about the exclusion of lesbians at IDANT? Council member Suzanne Lynn.
The ACLU is very strongly in favor of gay rights and against discrimination of gay people. And if I thought that legally we had a leg to stand on, I would sue an organization like IDANT and say that it cannot discriminate on the basis of sexual preference. However, because it's a private institution, legally I don't think that we'd get anywhere.
I think the American Civil Liberties Union has done more to aid and to abet the destruction of the American traditional moral family than probably any other organization.
Factions on the other side of moral majority issues have come to regard the right-wing group as a formidable opponent.
We have become a major target to the moral majority. I can show you pieces of direct mail that they send out monthly, which identify homosexuals as the #1 target, not the #2 target, not the #3 target, but the #1 target. Consider for a minute your reaction to receiving a piece of direct mail from Jerry Falwell. In it, you hear, homosexuals are on the move, they're about to come to your town, they are an abomination to God, you must help now to save your family and your children from the onslaught of homosexuals.
Without a question, I'd say homosexuality is probably the greatest threat to this nation today. They're trying to impose a very unnatural lifestyle upon all of society because they find some kind of happiness in their sin.
The long-term repercussions of underscoring the negative attitude toward homosexuals we are seeing here, resulting in such things as an outbreak of violence towards gays. After a particular television show that was shown nationally and underscored in a negative way the identity of homosexuals, we identified an increase of violence by 300%. In one city, it's a sport to wait outside of a lesbian bar and attack and sexually assault lesbians. That city is Washington, D.C.
It's simply less acceptable to be gay or to be living in an open gay relationship than it was a year or two ago.
And in some quarters, it's even less acceptable if motherhood is involved.
I think one of the other fears or myths that comes up in the cases is that children who are raised in gay households tend to become gay. And since the last thing we want to do, according to society, is make someone gay or create more gay people, we have to take them out of that environment and put them in a household where they're not going to become gay.
A 2-year study by the American Psychological Association of Washington, D.C. tells a different story. After studying the children of 43 lesbian mothers and 37 heterosexual ones, the association said it found no real difference in the sexual preference of the children.
I would put no confidence, of course, in that kind of a study. That child is going to be greatly affected, and that's the very reason that we oppose such an open acceptance of this lifestyle, especially where it affects our children.
Quite honestly, Dr. Vickery, have you ever met a homosexual you liked?
Oh, yes, I've known some people. In fact, a number of years ago, before it was even considered to be, ever thought to be acceptable by anybody, I've met some people that I knew were homosexuals. I have to admit I do detest the lifestyle. God loves the homosexuals, and we love them too, but we don't, nor does God, accept their lifestyle.
Have you always felt this way, or was there something that happened that triggered your feelings?
No, I would say that without any sex education or anybody teaching me anything, I knew that that was an immoral lifestyle.
I expect it from the moral majority. I expect it from my relatives. So how are they so different? I don't see them as evil. I see them as not being unlike relatives that I have in love. The long haul will require confronting the moral majority. And you know, as Adlai Stevenson said so well, if they keep telling lies about us, we're going to have to start telling the truth about them. And the truth about them is that using gay people as scapegoats has resulted in an enormous influx of money to their coffers. We know that. We're aware of that. It has helped them be able to sponsor radical right folks in Congress, and we're aware of that too. Over the long haul, I think that reason will prevail. I think Americans are basically fair-minded people. I think they're people who will recognize that we're not asking them to like us. We're simply asking them, does the Constitution hold true for us?
Although lesbians do not fit the traditional concept of motherhood, nonetheless they are mothers. But of course with the added stigma of being different. It's not an easy time to be a lesbian, and only an empathetic public can help develop an environment which would at least provide equal protection under the law.
All of us on Channel 2 The People encountered difficulty trying to locate lesbians willing to go on television for this program. Reaction, we were told, to the open hostility lesbians have been facing of late. If true, something must be said. Disagreement is every American's birthright. Intimidation? That's really something else. Fred?
For Marie Torre, I'm Fred Noriega. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week with a new edition of Channel 2 The People.